We've got all five of us, well, we're missing one, two of 4 here today, we should have five. Unfortunately, our mayor is absent today, but we make the
Who fills in when the mayor's not here?
Do we have something like that? Right. For that culinary ride.
I'm so excited.
That means they get paid in class.
I remember you actually live. We got real mad everybody didn't know.
You're not talking.
And then we're gonna move you guys. You guys done do the pledge, okay?
How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
That is the city flag. You know what's right there? That is the American flag. What's that flag over there? So, American, U.S., Georgia flag, live in Georgia, blue flag in Georgia.
Go Sox. Yeah, we go Sox.
You stay, you don't have to presentation, do you? I didn't think so.
We're too dumb for that.
No, you're not.
That's not true.
Hey,
There you go, there you go.
see, Chief, which one of them man that knows what he's doing? We're trying to.
$6 an hour?
One said $3 an hour, the other said $6 an hour, so there's a little bit of a difference.
Hey, my first job was 275. We're not having a great year. But it's still over.
So that you lay them back.
Under the radar.
So the next time they're going to get a job. That was back when everything. What time is it? She usually runs by me, that are too late.
Or she's like right on target.
Yeah.
I can't say this, you guys are kind of.
Yes. Check it out before I give it to you.
Like a public courtroom.
Say something wrong with it. You bump that No, I'm sorry, I went out for Fred, I didn't ask. It's okay. I need to go fix more coffee. You probably have time, if you want to put on blood, or you ask Ken to do it. No. You can ask me to do it. Okay, there's Betsy, right. I think we can help.
Oh, I put it on the ground so it wouldn't be anything.
Oh, good.
Good morning, everybody.
Tell Karen. Karen Robertson.
Yeah, you wave things off.
Karen did it. Morning.
Good morning, everybody. We're about to get started on our 8:30 work session. And welcome to Mrs. Rice's class for being here. We're really happy to have y'all. We're going to ask y'all to come up here in a minute and lead us in the pledge and then get a picture. But first, Henry wants to gavel us into order for the meeting. Okay. And if y'all would like to come up and stand back here, please.
See, mine's with the tallest.
You guys can come.
Remember to leave your professional.
And Carrie, you can agree, whenever we would like to say a few things about the class.
You guys, you invited me over to talk about city government, and I had an amazing time. And I learned that day that I was not smarter than a fifth grader. So thank you for your invitation. Thank you, Ms. Rice, for allowing me to come in. And thank you all for coming to spend a few minutes with us at our city council meeting. I would like to introduce you to everyone here. This is Mayor Pro Tem Rick Blanton. am City Councilwoman Carrie Peters Reed. This is Councilman Eric Joyce. This is Councilman Ed Latham. And this is City Councilwoman Betsy Wagner Howard.
Last but not least.
Behind Ms. Betsy Wagner Howard is our city manager, Mr. John Clem. We have our clerk today, Ashley Hall. And we have Monica Callahan today, who is our city planner. We have Ms. Carrie Robinson, who is our Main Street director today. And I don't know why I was looking to the
I just, wait, did the deals have a picture already or
No,
no?
we didn't take pictures. This is, and we have our chief of police also in the room. You guys, anybody know the chief of police in, from the city of Madison? Would you raise your hand? This is Mr. Ashburn in the back. We also
And
have,
don't forget, yeah, sorry.
I'm going to say, we have Russ, we have gas here, Mr. Russ, Johnson, Mr. Rusty Johnson, and he does everything for the city of Madison with gas. So some of you guys might have gas in your home.
Water and sewer.
And water and sewer. So guys, thank you so much for coming. We're gonna start our meeting, but we want to take a couple of pictures and you guys can get back to Ms. Rice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate this so much, y'all, the opportunity for them to actually see how city government works and just be aware that there's a process for why things are the way they are in Madison. This is huge, so we really appreciate the invitation and the opportunity for some questions.
Thank you, guys. You're welcome anytime.
If you guys want to switch, we'll have our officials.
That's the committee.
Everyone looking. Thank you. She's a lot. She's only 8 weeks.
I probably need to take that. Okay, because everybody's really good at meetings today. If you got questions, we know that we can write our questions, right? We can write questions, we can email them, we can email, we can actually sit them. Like I was thinking. Y'all ready? Okay, all right. You should sure actually thankful to the people who all have. You should acknowledge the people who all
You guys have a good Friday.
Glad y'all came today. Thank you. Very professional handshakes. You do a good job.
Only using my hands,
There you go. Catch your hands as y'all go out. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Y'all have a good day. Thank you for coming. Appreciate you. Professional.
That was so cute.
Yeah. I was gonna say, a little break today.
I was gonna say, wait.
That's a lot.
I had like 200 when I was speaking, they could buy class.
All I gotta say is we don't pay teachers enough. I don't care what people say. That's true. That's like acting paid.
Well, that was a fun way to start the meeting this morning. We're up against a few time constraints this morning. Monica needs to be gone by 9:15, and Eric needs to be gone by 10. So we're just going to move, if it's okay with everybody, item B to the end, and we'll start with the Municipal Gas Authority presentation and then go from there. Great. And Mr. Trelane,
I would just like to introduce Rusty and Steve Edwards from the Gas Authority and John Payne, who's our consultant engineer. We wanted to, you've heard about this upcoming gas project. but I think that the scope and the breadth of it might be surprising to you. I suspect it's probably one of the biggest projects we're going to see in Madison for the foreseeable future. So Rusty and Steve and John, could you join us and give us a description of the project?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've been instructed to sit in the middle like hello. Anyway, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of council. Thank you for allowing us to be here to speak to you just a minute on our case for improving our gas main. Our gas main runs from Jersey, Georgia, just south of 238. Excuse me, 138. And runs to our pay station on Silvergate Drive, which is 26.5 miles. We have 26.5 miles of 4-inch steel gas pipe under high pressure. We have some upgrades that need to be made up, particularly for Rivian, which is going to suck a lot of gas out of our line. As soon as it gets to almost the more we have in line. But first of all, I just want to thank you once again, tell you thank you for letting us come, and talk to you a little bit about the impact that natural gas has on our community. It's my part. Financially, I guess each and every one of you around this table realize the financial impact that gas has on our community. And any time that we can grow our system, make it larger, sell more gas, it's a good thing. Yeah, natural gas is not going anywhere. We get a lot of talk about the all-electric economy. You can't run industry on electricity. It will not work. They cannot produce enough electricity. They cannot produce enough of the things needed to manufacture. So natural gas is going nowhere when it comes to industry and manufacturing. It's not going anywhere. Living standards for our people here in town and on our system. A lot of people love their natural gas. They love their water heaters. They love their stoves. And it's an impact as far as financially and as far as living standards for our community. I don't know how many of you grew up in homes that had natural gas heaters, had the wall heaters, floor heaters. I did. I did. They're good heat. They're better than electric heat any day. As you can tell, I'm a gas guy. I like gas. And, as you grew up, you know, there's a lot of rap on natural gas as far as harming the environment, that kind of thing. But, as a jokingly asked there, everybody who grew up in a home that had floor heaters, space heaters, and even gas ovens. I remember Mom getting up, putting the turkey in before we went to bed, and I cooked it all night long in a gas stove. And I have to ask myself, how many of us sitting around this table had that are dead? Is anybody here dead? Because of natural gas impact. The natural gas is a clean burning natural fuel. There's nothing left when natural gas is consumed, unless the appliance is not working properly. You need to get carbon monoxide. But natural gas is a clean burning fuel that needs to be pushed in every town, every manufacturing facility, every place on the face there as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, another thing I wanted to talk about was everybody remember December 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th this past year, 2022. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
It got cold.
It did.
It got real cold. I worked my Christmas holidays. I worked Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We worked all day because of busted pipes, that kind of thing, gas, keep the gas pressure, keep an eye on the gas system. Those days, our natural gas on our longest northern pipeline, which ends at Debbie Whitlock's chicken houses, we have a gauge out there where we can tell the inline pressure. And we dropped 15 pounds, which is dangerous. The sad thing about that, and the grace that saved us that whole weekend, was industry was down. It was Christmas holiday. If they were up, we were in trouble, big trouble. We would have got snapped dry on heat load for our customers. We moved 3,200 MCF through our pipeline those days. That's a lot of gas. Vivian, our third of the gas in that project was 3,333 MCF. We pulled 3,200 that day. It pulled us down to 15 pounds when we had our line. That's dangerous. It took 10 pounds to run those chicken houses. they were loaded with thousands of chickens, so we lost them. We'd had a lot of dead chicken, we'd had chicken barbecue, sure. A lot of dead chicken, but they would have froze to death. But anyway, that's the impact. I had a couple of straws laid out. I was going to say something to you jokingly as far as that. I have a coffee stir. This is what we have now. Now I have a straw from KFC. This is what we need. It's kind of like that straw when you're sitting there and you're eating lunch and you eat your peanut butter and jelly sandwich and you get choked on it and you can't get it down. That little stir straw is not going to do much to you. You're in a bad place at that time. But you can reach over and get that big straw and it can pull you enough in there. And that's kind of where we're at with that. And our natural gas, we're going to sell it. As many of you know, I know Mr. John knows that we have interest around this town all the time with industry looking at our community and our town and our county. We have subdivisions coming on. I can count right now about 300 lots that are being developed out and getting ready to go. And most of them want gas. We're adding about almost 100 up towards Jersey in the near future. Different subdivisions that are coming online, all gas. So, we got that looking forward to, and they're good gas users. Most of them have, well, all of them have water heat, furnace, stove. They're fully, completely gas houses, so they've earned a good bit of gas. And we need to supply that gas. That's part of my job, is ensuring that City of Madison has plenty of gas to get here and to serve our people along the way. But my main job is safety. We have to keep our lines safe. We have to protect life and property. That's one of my main jobs, is make sure we're safe and we're operating efficiently. But we get enough amount of gas here to supply all our customers, industrial, commercial, and residential. And that's my concern. When Rivian comes on, it's going to sap us dry. If I'm not mistaken, John, I think they're going to pull inside the plant 200 PSI.
The liquid pressure is
200 PSI. We got a 400-pound 4-inch line that is probably going to take a hit. And if they would have been up and running, we would certainly working around the clock, relighting pilots when we could get pressure back up. We dropped dangerously low on pressure just from the cold weather, not the industry. And I said our saving grace was the industry was down that week. One little small tip that I got before I turn it over to John here. John's our numbers guy. He lays stuff out for us. He evaluates it. He tells us what we need, the pressure we need, the pipe we need, this kind of thing for all our projects. He lays it out and engineers it for us. I had a little interesting thing here. Does everybody know, I don't know if you do or not, Commerce has built in their town, not they, the company did, a electric car battery plant there, which that will be an in-house for Rivian. They have their own electric battery plant, making their own batteries for their plant. I couldn't go back, our computer dropped from, I don't have anything past 22 last year. I don't know where they went to. I had them pulled off, but I don't know where they went to on the computer. But in 22, Commerce's gas sale was 865,837 MCS. That's a lot of gas. This year, excuse me, that's 21. 22, this year, 1,371,415 MCS. They jumped 505,578 MCS. That's a lot of gas. That's more than we sell in a year. So that's what we can kind of look to as far as the Rivian plant coming. It's a lot of gas. And financially, it can be a big boost to our economy here in town. And I was talking to Karen about revenue as far as tax base coming from Rivian plant. The city's not going to get anything, budget anything off as far as tax revenue. So we need to get it off the gas. We need to pick that up, we need to run it, and pull our share of the pie, so to speak, out of the gas market. And we're going to need more gas. John's going to talk about that. An 8-inch line run from our tape station in Jersey to the county line. That will get it just past the Rivian tape point. An 8-inch line will haul as much gas as 4 4-inch lines. A lot of gas. And to pull it, it'll give us enough gas supply here and any growth that we have. I kind of get giddy every time I see somebody call and want to find out about gas for the industry. I get giddy. Oh, Yeah, we gotta have it, but, you know, that comes down to evaluating the community and that kind of thing. There's other things involved, but I get giddy when they talk gas. And usually gas is the last thing we find out about the industry. They find out about water and sewer first, and then they come hit you with gas. So that's the last thing to pull up. But I'm looking for gas. I want industry to come. I'm not gonna be lie to you. I'll be telling you a lie if I told you I want to keep Madison out of the industrial side. We need industry, we need jobs for our young people. And gas will supply those jobs for us. If it rains, when gas comes, jobs just pay jobs will fall. All right, I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. John Payne right now to give us a little bit of technical advice on this.
All right, like I said, I'm John Payne, I'm Kevin Wood. I appreciate y'all having me here today. As Rusty said, we've looked at various things in regards to capacities, what the lines can do. I've got tons of numbers here. I'm going to try to give you the important numbers and not throw too many things at you. As Rusty had mentioned, back in December, the system experienced a tremendous load. And looking at that, looking at the pressures, he typically likes to run the system around 300 PSI when it drops. And that ensures everything operates the way it should. That ensures that, you know, the regulator stations function, they're pushing the gas through, meeting the demands. In that time period, the pressure dropped all the way down to between 180 to 190 PSI. So that, and as Rusty has mentioned, that was dangerously low. Looking at just in comparison, so he had mentioned that the flow around that time period was 3,200 MCF per day. If you spread that over 24 hours, that's 133 MCF per hour. If you just look at the overall pipeline capacity for the 26.5 miles of 4-inch steel operating at 400 PSI, the flow that could be expected through that pipe is going from 400 PSI down to 300. The flow that could be expected is 100 MCF per hour. If you look at the drop from 400 to 190, which 190 is roughly where it got to, if you look at that flow, the flow through that pipe was 135 MCF per hour. Multiply that out, it's at 3,200 MCF per day. So that's a pretty good comparison. That also shows that you were dangerously close on that line. And it's like Rusty mentioned, you know, if industry would have been up and going, all the commercials would have been full bore, schools would have been in, then there would have been problems. I mean, we've got some systems that we know of that they were out during that time period. They were digging up lines into subdivisions and they were getting ready to squeeze lines off. You would have had homes out of gas. They would not have had heat. You know, phones would have been ringing off the hook. There would have been a lot, and like I said, the chicken houses, that would have been a problem as well. Going also back to Rivian, and Steve can correct me if I misquote some of these numbers. He's been involved in a lot of the Rivian discussions. The overall requested volume that Rivian has requested is 526 MCF per hour. So that's a lot of gas. Right now, City of Covington is committed to providing the bulk of that gas. Social Circle is, they're currently, I think they were at 75 MCF per hour is what they said that they could spare. That's what they could contribute. Based on modeling that we did last year, which was a schematic model of just the high pressure system, and that was also under previous peak demand, which, you know, that's going to be totally different with what we just went through. But even then, the share that we figured the city could contribute was only 12.5 MCF per hour. Based on what we saw in December with that 12.5 MCF per hour going to Rivian, that would have been detrimental to the city system. Right now, based on the numbers that I checked in yesterday once again to see if Rivian had provided any numbers, and they haven't. But right now, there's a shortfall of gas to Rivian of 100 MCF per hour that has to come from somewhere. So some of the systems have got to figure out different ways. I know in part of Covington, them providing their gas, they're also having to look at doing system upgrades as well to meet the numbers. And I've got those numbers. Let's see. Like I said, I've got all kind of numbers in here. Covington's committed 225 MCF per hour. they can increase that another 125 to 350 with modifications. As I mentioned, Social Circle is at 75. As Rusty mentioned, you know, whenever you switch to different diameter pipes, you know, it's not like just, you know, you're adding 2 more inches of pipe or 4 more inches of pipes, or you're doubling it. You actually get exponentially more volume through the pipes. And replacing the pipes out there, what we would like to do is increase the operating pressure to at least 500 PSI. That way it would ensure more gas was getting pushed through the system, pushed towards town. And, you know, whenever we do that, we would design it to that. We would design it to a higher standard than the 500. But that has to do with the pressure testing, wall thickness of the pipe, and so on. So just for comparison purposes, I ran some just basic pipeline capacity calculations, operating at 500 PSI and allowing a drop down to 300, just like I said, just for comparisons. So with a 4-inch steel main operating at 500 PSI, you could expect 155 MCF per hour. You increase that to a 6-inch, it goes from 155 to 460 MCF per hour. You increase from 6 to 8, that goes up to 970 MCF per hour. So there's substantial increase whenever you go up in pipe diameter. So one of the things that we've looked at, just running some basic calculations, would be, okay, this first segment that we've looked at is extending or replacing the 4-inch pipe from the take station, and it would be roughly, I think it was about 15 miles, yes, about 15 miles from the take station to the Walton County, Morgan County line, which is right there near Rivian. So in order, you know, to do that, the Rivian demand would be coming off on the high pressure side. So that helps things as well. So you would, even if we were I looked at sending 150 MCF per hour to Rivian, which that would be a great load for the city to be able to send to them. That would be a great source of revenue. You experience only 5 PSI drop at that point if you're running the 8-inch line. That's how much gas is going through there. At that point, we would place a regulator station that would regulate down to the 400 PSI to get back onto the city's existing line. Being that, and Rusty was talking about a straw, being that the straw just got shortened, even though we're putting it back at the same operating pressure now that the city's operating at that county line, that still increases the volume of gas that can be pushed into the city. So instead of looking at to drop from 400 to 300, instead of looking at, you know, like I mentioned before, the 400 or the 4-inch line would only do 100 MCF per hour, you're looking more at 160 MCF per hour because you're only talking about 11-inch or 11-mile section of pipe as opposed to 26.5 miles. So that substantially increases the amount of gas to the city. I mean, you know, and we can look at modeling with the new demands and such in there. You know, what we're thinking is if you can install an 8-inch to the county line to Rivian in that area, that would supply additional gas to, you know, if there's other industry that comes out there in addition to Rivian, there's a lot of property out there. So if you have more development out there, you would still have more gas that can meet that demand at that area. You know, it would be great to extend 8-inch on into town as well. But at that time, you know, we could look at modeling and see, do you want to extend 8 on into town at some time frame down the road? Or, you know, we could extend 6-inch into town on down the road. So, I mean, you've got some flexibility there, but you would still, as I mentioned with those numbers, you would still be looking at substantial increase over that 4-inch line that you have right now. Because it's like Rusty said, that 4-inch line is a straw and it's maxed out. I mean, you know, the issue that happened in December, I mean, you were on the cusp of having some significant issues. And it's just thankful that it happened when it did. But that's the bulk of the information I have, and I'd be glad to go over any of those numbers. I know it's a lot of numbers. I had more numbers, but I was like, I'm not going to throw all these numbers at everybody because I know it's just going to go. So I can go back over those or provide any additional information if y'all need me to.
Let's talk about costs.
All right.
That's what they want to know.
Cost. So one of the things that Rusty and we rode the line a couple of weeks ago and talked about some different things. And looked at everything. One of the things that's up in the air right now, we may also have to do some work out there at the take station because the current operating pressure of the lines is set at 400. I know Rusty's been doing some work trying to get that increased to 500, but due to current regulatory requirements, that's been difficult to do. So we've added a line item in there for replacement of that take station, which that take station, I mean, we haven't even been able to find the drawings on it. So, I mean, it was installed in at least 1960 to 62. So it's got some age on it, and we were scratching our head out there trying to figure out, why they did some of the things they did and how the lines are ran. So, I mean, it has served a useful life. So we're looking at that. We also added a line item in. It's like I mentioned, at the county line, we'll have to have another regulator station for the time being to regulate from the 500 down to the 400 of the city's current operating pressure. So for construction, this is just rough numbers. Just includes line items such as an estimated quantity for bore pipe, the overall installation of pipe. We've got a line item for railroad crossing, some valves, connections to existing mains, and the stations like we just mentioned. For all those things for the 8-inch, with a 20% contingency built in, because obviously there's going to be some things that we didn't think about, pavement patch, rock, things like that. So we've got a 20% contingency in there. So we're looking, based on the current numbers we have, it's at $14.8 million for that 8-inch line to go that distance.
And that's for the 11 miles to the county line?
That's correct. That's correct. Just like Rusty and I were talking, I mean, we would look to we would have to obtain an easement right there around the county line to place that regulator station because DOT will not let you put that in the DOT right of way. So we were looking the other day. There's some parcels out there that we may be able to obtain an easement, hopefully without much issue, to put that station on.
And did that include the new transfer station from the 8-inch to the 4-inch?
That's correct. That includes everything except for survey and design, engineering, bidding services, those type of things. So that was just for the actual construction of the main, the take station, and a regulator station.
The take station, the first what we had wasn't in that.
No.
We didn't know exactly, but we can't find any information on it. We could run an 8-inch line, get the pressure up, and the PSC comes to know you can't run on that old regular station. So it's best just up front to do it, get it over with, and take care of it from the start. Because you deal with the PSC like we do every day, they're rough. They're rough.
Anybody have any other questions, comments?
Yes, if I could. With what we would be sending our portion to Rivian on an annual basis, what would that be financially? I mean,
Yeah, let me touch on a few things there. So we have a current partnership that's called Stanton Springs South that you all know about, east of Decatur, and what was supposed to be additional gas usage, which turned into Facebook. And so then we have the new project, which is Stanton Springs North. The original project, you guys were at a 25% take, 37.5% was what Social Circle and Covington made. The new, and that's some back history to it, but it was because Jasper left. But that's the current amounts. The revenues that you currently get are based off the 25% amount. The new regs that John and Rusty are asking for is a third going forward. So some of the things that both Rusty and John have mentioned can't happen unless you are there. If you can't get there, you can't just provide 100 of something that's going to take an enormous amount. You can't just provide a portion. You have to provide your full third to be a part of that group. So to answer your question, I base everything, I don't go to the highest end because I don't trust some of John. I don't trust some of the engineers' numbers when they're providing for these big projects. They tell us these big numbers. So we take a 30% of that instead of taking 100% of what they're asking for. And the revenue sharing of your portion is tremendous. You currently produce revenues off your gas systems of about $3,600. Based on your margins, that comes right at $2 million. The new program, we were talking, and I'm trying not to get too technical with the MCF, but your current, the total load for 30%, they're wanting 750,000 MCFs. Again, we're talking about crazy numbers. To give you a little bit of example, is if anybody has a furnace at home, your furnace uses 35 MCF. So if you divide that out, this is like adding 21,382 furnaces, just Madison's portion. So tremendous gas load. And with that, then the revenues come out to, the revenues kind of project themselves to go further, further, further. And so you would attain an additional 600,000, your portion of revenue in the early days. In the early days, it takes a little while for the system to ramp up. And so it's significant. So we did kind of a payback analysis based on your cost versus what your revenue stream would be from that. And you're looking at just over 7-year payback. And that is on the minimum of 30%, and that is the minimum of the first year load. So I'm not taking into account their ramp up. I don't want to give you numbers. I'll be very, very conservative with the numbers I give you. And so we do it based off of the minimal amount, 30% load. So the revenues are huge. A couple of things that I want to point out as well, too, is we talked about that partnership. We have met, John, and Rusty and I have met with the Joint Development Authority, trying to find funds to help you all. The Hyundai plant down in Claxton, which is one of our cities as well, had some funding come through. So we tried to replicate that, duplicate that. We can't guarantee that there's any of those monies out there. So we need you guys to come together. We work for y'all. We don't get to dictate anything. We just are consultants. We come together, bring you information, and you get to make that decision. But in order to be in this project, you've got to start putting pipe in the ground. This project, and we can get into politics to whether I want it to come or not. Y'all can ask me later. It's coming. It's going to be there. There's nothing we can do to stop it at this point. It is going to happen. It's not really, it's going to be something else. To give you an example of one of their buildings, you know, the Mercedes-Benz Dome in downtown Atlanta. One of their buildings will be 10 of those. 10 of those domes under an enclosed area. So it'll be gigantic. One building. But the other thing is we want to make sure that not only and we will never spend your money to head that way. I keep calling it Stanton Springs North versus the R word. We will never make that transition in what John Haines talking about. It's not there. We're not spending your money to get there. But John Haines and Rusty are designing the system to take care of your future needs no matter what. Whether that system comes or not, you're in a little bit of a bind. It's a good problem to have. You have to have natural gas here and without maintaining it. I guess the other thing I had was just that final comment that we work for you guys. So we will answer any questions, but you will end up your revenues. Obviously, you know that the revenues that come in from your gas system are very significant. And how lower taxes to help with police, fire, federation, those kind of things. So I'll hold down the numbers.
There's one more thing we left out. We can get to turn gas on to the Boston project. And right now, that's running with 68 MCF an hour. Is that what we're figuring out?
It's actually less than that. I think it was more around 40.
40 MCF.
Yeah, but that depends. That depends on how many poultry farms come on. It depends on how many houses. There's a lot of newer houses out there and building more houses. So, a lot of those houses, I know when it's under construction out there, the contractor was getting constant questions of how soon are you going to have gas? What can we do to get on? So, it may end up being bigger than what we had anticipated out there as well. So that's an additional load that was not in there this December.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question? I want to thank you for the numbers, Steve, because that's kind of what I would look at is the return on that capital investment and how long it would take to pay it back. In 7 years, if those numbers work out, 7 years is pretty quick payback on that capital expansion.
So does that mean like a 7-year ROI, that means at a cost of $14.15 million, are you saying that the increased profit in gas sales over that 7-year period is $15 million more than what we currently make selling gas?
That's what he,
Based on conservative estimation.
Based on 30%.
yeah.
30%, not 100%. So that payback could come down, but I'm not giving you those numbers.
Well, I feel comfortable with the conservative numbers. I mean, because a 7-year payback on a major capital expansion is darn good, I would say it another way. And then looking at it, if we can get it on a conservative basis, if we can get it to pay back in 7 years, what's that additional $2 million coming in is going to go to help lower taxes, do all that other stuff. I mean, I think it's a great project, and Rusty, thank you. You simplified a lot of things down, so those of us that don't understand flow through pipes, I appreciate you bringing it down to my level, a 5th grade level.
Thank you.
We might have to the next time.
Please do.
I'm pretty low.
Appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you.
Understand y'all have thousands of things to work on. Our focus, Rusty's is threefold, mine and John's is onefold. So we want to make sure and draw your attention to what we do. So we appreciate it. Thank you. Your consideration, any of the numbers, keeping you guys be all on with those.
And I would just like to say, if I could, Mr. Mayor, these are our technical experts. They know gas. But we're also consulting with financial experts, because when all is said and done, their knowledge and expertise is great, but they're not going to give us the $14 million note. Finance people are. And so there's a whole nother aspect of this where, and I cannot say enough about Steve and the Gas Authority and what help they've been to our city. They've been a godsend to our city in terms of their knowledge and expertise. He set up a meeting recently with the JDA to explore financial possibilities, grant possibilities. We had a meeting last week with the USDA to see if there were any possibilities there. And the good news is that they do have a loan program with a preferable interest rate, but they really don't have a grant program. But Rusty is he either has or is going to, before he leaves, consult with John Payne, because we want to put a package together and aggressively pursue through our 2 U.S. Senators' offices and others the possibility of federal grant funding. I mean, any of those possibilities really makes this project look good. But we're not here to ask for a decision today. We were here to provide information, and we will continue to work, and from time to time, Rusty will have an update to let us know how we're going. I mean, it's sobering for me to understand that a $14 million project for the city of Madison is a huge project. I mean, this will probably be the biggest project that we see maybe in the next 3 decades. I mean, this is a big project. And so we have a fiduciary responsibility, and what might look good, if you're the one putting the money out, you got to make damn sure it's good. And we'll do that. And we'll have financial experts that will be updating us soon on this topic.
And John, just one other point, just to kind of give you a frame of reference. Until the Hyundai plant hit, this is the largest on the entire interstate pipeline. Hyundai will be number 1 now, and we will be number 2 on the entire interstate pipeline. That's how big this project is.
So, yeah, one quickly, toward the very end of your presentation of the numbers and such, you did reference
even if Rivian didn't work out, right, that we know other industry would be coming in. I mean, I get that, that's a given. But I feel that, so what I'm looking at now is a worst case scenario, all right? So, I mean, we all have the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is other industry comes in, maybe it trickles in, maybe how I know that you've probably looked at that as well. What is all of a sudden, maybe we may not be at a 30% 7-year payback. We may be somewhere else. What does that look like?
You called the salesman in a bad situation. The salesman gave you the worst case scenario of the best case. I can tell you a couple of things there because I can't tell you a story. One is we would have money savings of $14 million, but we would continue pursuing that route up to the Sand Springs North. So we have a little bit of money savings there. The opposite of that is the revenue stream, which you pointed out, would not be as quick a return on that. But we would have to dive deeper to let you know what those two numbers would be. And I'd love to say I have a crystal ball, and John was in the meeting, Rusty was in the meeting, when we were told this thing's coming. Things can change. Things can change. So that's why I'm telling you that we're not going to make the extra expense to go sit, and we're not going to fulfill the dreams at that point. We're not going to run up there, build it, they will come. We will then divert. But I cannot give you today the good number that you're asking. My apologies, but it will be a longer payback. It would not be insurmountable payback, but the revenue stream makes those numbers so much better than I can't give you what I could based off of a residential load. And there's some unknown of like the trickle in type loads to come in. So I cannot give you a good number.
Right. Sure, no.
The sales guy was just lying.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen. You know, I might add, Rick, if I could, I think it was in Savannah, I met one of the council members from Royston, and he told me that they don't have a city property tax in Royston because of revenues from their gas sales. And he attributed, I believe, as I recall, pretty much to the gas they sell to Emmanuel College up there.
Oh, wow.
I'm not saying that's anything we could achieve, but I thought I'd throw that out there, even though I'm not totally convinced.
Okay, Monica, you've got about 30 seconds to do your two based on your needs to leave.
I'm actually going to be pretty quick this morning. So you will hear at your council meeting a presentation by Phil Schmeltzer on the Green Fund Me campaign. And that is specifically, the Green Space Board wants to do a fundraiser, and it will make it a lot easier not have to bring everything they fundraise to the council each time they get a donation. So John asked each of our groups to put together a regular donation list so that y'all could pre-approve the list, and then they can actively engage in fundraising knowing that they have already got your endorsement. So Phil will be making that presentation for the Green Space Board at your meeting, and there's a handout that goes with it that I need to send to Ashley today. And then the second item I have on the agenda is for the Acceptance of Commerce Drive extension. That we discussed that at your previous meeting. It was contingent, the manager had to make a recommendation. It was contingent on receipt of bond. We have received that bond. It has been deemed sufficient. And so now the owner would like to go ahead and transmit those roads. So we are hoping that that would be something that you could put on your consent agenda for the next regular meeting. But we are in receipt of the bond, and John told me to give it to you to store in the file.
Is everybody okay with putting that on the consent agenda for the next meeting?
And this was the 1 year, which we are currently only allowed to require.
Yes, sir, your ordinance calls for a 1-year bond.
Okay, and then are we hand in hand making some efforts to change that per the recommendation to?
Yes, sir, it's
for
on the
future,
subdivision
go to
edit
3?
list. Because the engineer did recommend a 3-year bond. And so the subdivision regs will be amended to reflect that 3-year bond. In the past, the city manager has waived all bonds, and we've never taken one before. So this is kind of a new process for us, and looking forward to making sure that it complies with what the engineer wants as well. So you'll see that subdivision amendment probably proceed through the July meeting, is my guess, by the time it gets to legal and by the time we get it back.
If I could ask Mayor Pro Tem, is John on board with this proposal as presented then, if it's going to consent agenda?
I am in favor of it, and I'm appreciative of Monica preparing the correction to the ordinance so that in the future it'll even be better.
Very good. Thank you, Monica.
Welcome. Y'all have a nice day. Good
You
weekend.
Okay, this is, next up is the ordinance amendment for the B&Bs. Eric?
Yeah, I brought this up. This is kind of like an old thing. Excuse me just one second here. This is 800.33 in the code. It provides an opportunity for bed and breakfast within the city limits under a whole bunch of conditions. It's got to be minimum there's a lot size. I think it's minimum 0.75 acres to even qualify to be a B&B. Has to be owner occupied. For each bedroom beyond the one has to be another 0.125 acres. So in other words, my calculations, if you have a 1.5 acre lot and I believe it's a 2,500 foot minimum house, you can rent as many as six rooms in that house. And the little history of it, looking back at the minutes that Ashley was kind enough to pull up from 3 years ago, on her birthday in 2020, and my birthday too. But that it was increased at that meeting from 4 to 6. Now the history of it, I believe it first came up in the 80s and was set originally for two rooms for this B&B ordinance. It was increased to 4 in the 90s. I have no information as to the arguments that went into it. And then it was Jeff Royal on behalf of Kirby House who brought it to us in 2020, 3 years ago. And that ended up interesting. I kind of had to refresh my memory from the minutes, but Rick, I believe you were absent.
I was.
There was a 2-2 vote. It was Chris Hodges and me voted against the increase from 4 to 6, and Ed and Kerry voted in favor, and then the mayor broke the tie to allow 6. My personal feeling is that as an accessory use, I'm kind of stunned to think that 6 rooms can be considered an accessory use to the residential primary use. So basically, I would like to revisit this issue, and I would like to start the process to rescind our increase from 4 to 6. I'm not going back to what I would really like to see, which is 2, but I would just like to rescind our last increase. And my thinking on that is, would any of us here want to have right next door to us a house that can legally rent out 6 bedrooms every night of the year right next to where we live? I mean, I don't think I would, and I realize there's some protections. It's got to be a big lot and a big house. The reason I'm bringing this up now primarily is because the requester in the last time was Jeff Royal, and that house, Kirby House, is now under a family residence. They've got a big family and kids, and so they don't want to be in that program. So that's kind of out. Also, just within the last few months, a house on East Avenue, the Madison Oaks, I believe it used to be called, is now taken over by residents and have no intention of renting out that place. So that in the past has been used as a B&B. Right now, to my knowledge, I don't believe we have any existing B&Bs in the city of Madison.
We do
The
not.
inn category is a little bit different.
It's an inn, it's a B&B inn, it's in a different category.
Yeah, there's a separate inn ordinance. It's a little confusing. So this is, and there's also, I might add, a 2,000-foot separation requirement. That's a little less than half a mile. That's, from Kirby House, for example, as I checked it a few years ago, 2,000 feet would take you up to about the Methodist Church. So no other B&B could
Go between it.
could exist within that circle of about 2,000 feet. Anyway, we have no one now that has a vested interest in this. I personally feel that six rooms being rented seems like an awful lot for a neighborhood, for Pete's sake. So I would like to revisit it, and I would like you to consider. Obviously, we're not taking a vote. We're not even putting it on a consent agenda. I believe it would have to go through the planning and zoning hearing process, and then back to us for another vote. That's kind of my thinking on it, and if you have questions or comments, I can copy the minutes of the meeting that you can look at, and the code, if you look up the zoning code, if you just go into the city website and in the little search bar, put in 800.33, and it'll prompt you right to that ordinance. I might add, Monica's not here, but Ken maybe, I'm not quite sure what happened, but when you go to 800.33 right now, as we speak, it's 4 bedrooms. There's no red ink, there's no, I can only think that's been an oversight for 3 years, but I do not see where we changed it to 6. And so I think that's more of kind of a bookkeeping issue, but right now, if the public were to go to our website and look it up, it does not show any amendment, doesn't show our action of 3 years ago. Still shows 4 bedrooms.
Yeah, as an aside, I do remember that meeting. I missed it because I had COVID. I know how I would have voted at that time. And some of those arguments are the same that I have against the renting houses entirely through the
Airbnb stuff,
Airbnb,
temporary rentals, yeah.
and that kind of thing. So I'm perfectly fine with revisiting it.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'm kind of against changing it. I'm just kidding. I've got 4 acres, so I could probably have 12 or 14 in Cedar Lake rooms rented, and I'm not going to do that, but I do agree that I think that's a valid point that Eric's bringing up. I mean, you know, we had it at 2, like you said, and then 4, but then we had the distance requirements and all that stuff, and we're getting a big push on Airbnb that's coming up that I keep getting calls on. Are we ever going to look at it and evaluate it? And I have mixed feelings on that too. But personally, my daughter has her house in Atlanta. She moved to Omaha. She has it on Airbnb and never had a problem because it's under a management company does it. But anyway, I think we need to reevaluate the Airbnb, and I think we need to do what you're talking about, Eric. Thank you.
And it was actually approved as a conditional use, and Jeff never came back and asked for it. He just wanted it in the memory serves.
That's correct. The conditional use permit is required. You're right, and he never did that part of it. But it still remains on the books, and I don't think that plays a role in why it's not in the ordinance now. I'm really kind of perplexed as why that change hasn't been there. Right below it on that page is, in red ink, is something related to another home occupations category where there has been an amendment, and it's in red ink. It's all about home, I think it's daycares.
Daycares, that was during the same time.
And I fully expected to find that related to the B&B thing. I was a little reluctant to bring this up only because it's really easy for the public and probably for us to confuse short-term rental issue that we do have to talk about and this particular ordinance. This requires owner occupied. It's got the distance requirement, the footage of the house and the lot. But I would like to, start the process to work with Monica to get it to planning and zoning and back to us unless anyone's.
I would like for us to begin to talk about it, Mr. Mayor, may I? I would like to talk about it. A while back, I actually had it on a work session agenda to talk about Airbnbs and to talk about everything dealing with Airbnbs and this as well. And we kind of pushed it to the side and kicked the can down the road. I think we need to really sit down and have some really conversations about this because this is actually what's going on now in the world. Airbnbs are really big right now. I've had several calls myself about Airbnbs and about short-term rentals, and we probably have some Airbnbs and short-term rentals that are just not, we just don't know about them right now.
Yeah.
So we really need to regulate it. We need to go ahead and get it on the agenda and go ahead and talk about it.
Well,
See what we need to do.
There is some we do know about.
That's exactly right.
But
The trigger hadn't been pulled on.
I mean, I kind of see that as
Yeah.
very closely related, but
It
a
is.
little different than what this particular ordinance says.
It is.
So I would, it's not going to be easy to have that discussion and not get into what we
Yeah.
need
Right.
to talk about.
Yes.
But I
And-
would like to just maybe focus at first on this ordinance, and then I think we do have to have that bigger conversation about.
Mr.
We need to
Mayor, I
focus on
agree-
this.
I agree with Eric.
I remember when we did the six rooms, and it was conditional use, as Rick said. So we can deal with this one, and we need to deal with everything else as well.
But I would, if I may, I would agree with Eric that we should look at this on its own merit before we move forward with any other kind of temporary rental situations.
No, thank you. Oh.
Does anybody have anything else to be discussed this morning?
Can I ask, especially with Chief Ashburn here, I went online to look at the golf cart ordinance that was put in the flyer that came out, and it was Madison, ga.gov.org/carts. That page doesn't exist. So people are getting sent to ask, to look at the ordinance even before we've, it's gone into effect. I've had folks ask me, what do I need to do? I mean, they want to know in advance. So there's nothing there. So that's a little bit, that kind of, I mean, I don't know who's putting the page up or who's doing it, but all of a sudden it's like, if we're putting that out and that flyer's been out for a month.
Sure. I know we talked about 90 days to implement it, and maybe they were trying to get ahead of it.
July 1st.
Yeah.
So Philip and I built the page, but I didn't realize that it was in effect, so I haven't
It's a
made it live.
404.
Huh?
It's the page. It's
Right, but my understanding is that the ordinance wasn't in effect. I didn't know a flyer went out that had that in it, so.
Oh, well, it's the one about
In the
the
newsletter?
cute little, yeah.
in the
it came
newsletter.
It's in
Okay.
the newsletter that
Yeah,
came.
I mean, we can make it live. I just-
Utilities. Well, I think we can also put a disclaimer saying this won't go into effect until, but I have folks now that want to start
The process.
getting up to speed.
Well, I know a couple of things we're still having to wait on is the signage. I know that's being worked on, so
Right.
we can't enforce it until.
No, that's fine.
So, but I understand what you're saying. People are wanting to know what they need to go ahead and do so they can be ready.
Exactly.
I got you.
Yeah. So if we could, so if it's just a question of signage, that shouldn't affect anybody conforming to whatever regulations we are
What
imposing.
equipment is going to be required
Right.
to be legal.
Like I
Right.
said, it's already, nobody
Okay.
make it live yet.
Okay, fine. Well, if we could, because for some, it's going to take some time. I mean, once July 1st rolls around,
I mean, is there any way to maybe go ahead and say, no sooner than July the 1st?
yeah,
That probably would give us.
we could couldn't that be kind of a banner on the page?
Easily.
Yeah,
Well, didn't we have a hard date?
July 1st, I think.
Was it July 1st?
Uh-huh.
It was, I think, 90 days after we passed it.
Right.
Provided that all the signage and everything.
Yeah, right. It was at least 90 days.
Correct.
So, yeah, that'd be very useful, because I'd like to see some of my neighbors starting conforming, even though, like, the guy that was running down the street the other day with a baby in his arms, in his golf cart.
Oh,
Hit one bump. So, anyway, I'm happy for this ordinance to get going. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just two quick things. The deadline for submissions of the RFQs for our city attorney are May 5th, next week. And I know you I think you're the chair of the city attorney committee. So it would be very helpful if soon after the 5th of May, when we have all of the packages in, that you begin to meet to evaluate them so that we can make a decision.
Eric, on that.
Good.
Ready to do that, I'm sure.
Oh, finally, and sorry, one last thing. It's 90% certain that I won't be at the city council meeting. So I'm hoping that if anything really controversial shows up, that it could be tabled until we have a full council. I mean, I don't know kind of what's on the agenda yet or will be flying, but
It's the May meeting you're referring to?
yes, on
At the 8th, I think?
the 8th, it is the 8th, yeah. So,
Nothing else is,
Just
Karen, sorry.
well, one quick thing. Normally on the work agenda, we have a city manager report. Has that kind of gone the way of I mean, isn't that how we used to do it for a while?
Yes.
I gave a short one with one item. The second item is budgetary, and that is we're getting further along in formulating the budget. So I would appreciate meeting again one-on-one with counselors over the next week to float some ideas and to listen to your concerns. I have one meeting right now, right after this meeting, and so if we could set up meetings, that would be very helpful. And I appreciate the input that I've already received. I think it'll make the budgetary process go more smoothly.
Perfect. And on the heels of that comment, one more thing that I'd forgotten. Chris Lambert asked me last night about, the Georgia Trust is having their Ramble in Madison in the fall. And she had asked if Madison would be one of the sponsors. It wouldn't be that much, it would be between $500 and $1,000, but our name then would be prominent on the material and stuff. And she felt like if the Georgia Trust Ramble was coming, that it would look very good if we helped sponsor that. And I was thinking, that's kind of a drop in the bucket, really. I don't know. Well, I know, as we're trying to, squeeze everything in the budget, maybe it's not.
The drops are getting
but
bigger.
I know. Anyway, it's something for us to think about.
And I might add too, Betsy, that it's 10 years ago, Georgia Trust came here to Madison. It's great for the town. There'll be 350 people, a lot of them from Atlanta. It's a very prestigious organization that focuses on historic preservation. They'll be coming here very much like a home tour for 3 days. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event in Madison and Morgan County. So it's really good for the city and for the county, and a very prestigious thing to have them back in 10 years. And that's aiming for October, I believe.
Right. And Chris feels like it would look very good for the city if we were one of the sponsors. So whatever that would.
So maybe we can squeeze $1,000 out of John's discretionary budget. Do you have a discretionary budget?
You do.
Karen, you have something to add today? Good morning.
Just really quick.
Good morning.
Just want to thank everyone for coming out last night, all the evening, very well, appreciate your support. There is a ribbon cutting today at 1 o'clock p.m. at the patisserie on Main. If you're able to attend,
Will they be handing out free samples?
at your discretion.
And that was a great event. I
Yeah.
think. It was.
Yes, thank you so much. You did an awesome job. Thank you. All right.